Hello out there. My name is Laolu Akonde, and you are on to Inside Sources. But first, here's my take for today entitled No Ransom, Just Rescue. Let Oyo be the new normal. Yes, we can. Barack Obama made those three words a rallying cry, a declaration that what looks impossible today can be done tomorrow if we choose will over weariness. So today we say to all of us, government and people of Nigeria, yes, we can have a secured nation. Relief has arrived in Orire, around Ogbomoso, and hope is rising. Because on Friday, around Ogbomoso, I'm talking of Orire local government in Oyo State, our security agencies did what too many Nigerians had stopped believing was possible. There was a rescue of those who were kidnapped on May 15 by those heartless terrorists. No ransoms were paid. No deals were struck. Our people were brought home by force of will, intelligence, and courage. Now, that matters because for years in this country, we have had to pay what I call a fair tax. A tax paid not in naira, but in anxiety, in sleepless nights. In Orire local government, the pain was more personal with the murder of Michael Oyedokun. Oyedokun was a mathematics teacher. He was abducted alongside those now freed on Friday on May 15 from the community grammar school in Ahoro, Esiele. 2 days later, on May 17, he was beheaded in captivity, and the video of that horror went viral. We must say again that may his soul rest in peace. So today, we honor the memory of all those who have lost their lives in the extreme violence and bloodletting that we have seen in the land. We honor the memory of every teacher, every child, every parent, every security officer, everyone who has fallen. And as a people, we should vow to fight on to prevent future tragedies. Yes, we can. My felicitations today go first to the families of those that have been rescued. And I hope that they can carry on their lives and endeavors and pray that they will get a full recovery and an appropriate restoration from the trauma of 56 days in the wild forest in captivity. We must also say kudos to the President and Commander-in-Chief, Bola Ahmed Tinubu, and also to the Governor of Oyo State, Seyi Makinde. To the Nigerian police, we must also say commendations. The Department of State Services, the Armed Forces of Nigeria, and all the local security outfits whose coordination together brought our people home. Let us say it again, well done indeed. And to the resilient people of Oyo State and Nigeria, may we live in peace in this country going forward. It was Chinua Achebe who wrote, "A man who pays respect to the great paves the way for his own greatness." Today, we pay respect to the courage that chose rescue over ransom. This rescue must be seen within a larger picture because the picture is changing. Across the country, our security forces have been regaining ground. In the northwest, bandit enclaves are being cleared. In the north central, joint operations are restoring confidence to farming communities. And in the northeast, with enhanced intelligence cooperation with our American partners, the Nigerian military has delivered decisive blows. Only recently, we saw the elimination of an ISWAP deputy leader and several key commanders. Logistics hubs have been taken out. Supply lines have been cut off. The shadow of fear is receding, and the tree of state capacity is becoming visible, and we need to keep it going that way. So let's be clear. Why does this Oyo rescue matters? It matters because for too long, kidnapping followed a predictable script: abduction, devastation, negotiation, ransom, and a repeat of an horrendous cycle. That script does two things. It funds crime and it diminishes the state. And then a third thing, it ruins society. On Friday in Oyo State, what happened in the rescue tore up that script. No ransom was paid, we are told. No deal was struck, we believe. Our security agencies chose the other part: intelligence, tracking, patience, and then, thankfully, a decisive rescue. Now, this sends a message to every citizen that the state can come to defend you. And this sends a message to every criminal: you cannot dastardly monetize human life and expect to prosper. As Mandela taught us, it always seems impossible until it is done. On Friday, it was done. What happened? 3 things. First, critical thinking. Security agencies resisted the quick fix. They built a profile. They worked the sources. They used technology. Second, there was commitment. This wasn't a sprint. Operatives stayed in the field across agencies until the mission was complete on Friday. And third, most importantly in my view, there was political will from the presidency in Abuja to the government house in Ibadan. The directive was clear: rescue those people. Courage without cover withers. On Friday, our men, the agencies, had both courage and cover. This is what governance should look like. And so, this must become the new doctrine. This must become the new normal. Let the Orire Ogbomosho rescue be the reference point. Let every security command, outfit in every state understand the order of priority: rescue, restore, and prosecute. We must also invest to sustain this: more training in hostage rescue, better equipment, deeper synergy between federal forces and agencies, between state structures, and even community-level intelligence. Our adversaries are evolving very fast. We must evolve even faster. But the work is not finished at the point of rescue. Those who spent weeks in captivity now, they need care: medical care, psychological care, social care. Family needs support. Schools must be made safe again. Communities must heal. And these are important imperatives that we must diligently pursue and deliver. You cannot rescue a body and neglect the mind. And then justice must follow. Those arrested must face the full weight of the law, swiftly and transparently. Nigerians must see that crime has severe consequences. Deterrence is not built on press statements. It is built on conviction that criminals will end up prosecuted in courtrooms. Our leaders must sharpen their resolve. Fighting terror requires unflinching determination, not to be diluted by political opportunism or personal agendas. Here on Inside Sources, we always close with this: that Nigeria will prevail. In Orire, around Ogbomosho in Oyo State, we saw a glimpse of that prevailing on Friday. When our government chooses resolve over convenience, Nigeria works. When our security agencies are given intelligence, resources, and backing, they deliver. So let this be the new normal. No ransom, just rescue, and then restore the victims, prosecute the criminals. Let Nigerians and Nigeria soar. When there is will, there is a way. And when there is a way, Nigeria wins. Once again, congratulations to everybody, people, and government. There you have it. Inside Sources goes full blast right after this. Welcome back to Inside Sources. Today, I want to lead the show with a conversation with somebody who is very familiar with Nigeria's security architecture, who has spoken very widely and extensively on those issues. He's also actually the special advisor to the president of the Christian Association of Nigeria, and is the director of peace and security for the 6th region of the African Union, talking about the diaspora. I'd like to welcome for the first time to Inside Sources, all the way from Washington, D.C., Reverend Laddie Thompson. Reverend, welcome to Inside Sources.
The pleasure is mine, sir.
All right. So, since this is your first time on the show, I'd like to ask you, if you look at where the country, Nigeria, is today, what kind of future do you think is ahead of us?
That's a very pregnant question, I must say. And I don't think there's any need for us to reinvent the wheel. Let me go back to something that Obafemi Awolowo said on the 16th of July in 1952. He said, "It is our duty to aim at the erection of a new edifice, much nobler in conception, more artistic in design, and more imposing in structure and extent than any that we have hitherto been erected or contemplated." He also said something in 1958, later on. He said, "The welfare and happiness of the people of Nigeria are indivisible. So are their misfortunes." So there are two things Awolowo prescribed then that he said we needed to do immediately. That was in 1958. First, he cautioned that we needed to arrest the process of Nigeria's disintegration and reunite the country. Secondly, he said we must put an end to the prevailing internecine hostilities and reorganize our affairs in such a manner as to prevent a recrudescence, that's continual cycle of these hostilities. And if we take a cue from that, I will say that this is Nigeria's best moment, as it were, despite all the pain, despite the sorrows, the blood, the weaponization of poverty, all the things that we have been through. I want to say to us that I think we need to see the silver lining in this particular dark cloud. I believe that Nigeria is being prepared for a glorious future. So the pain that we're going through right now must be used to serve us right, for the right purpose. The pain that we are going through has been a lot, but we need to realize that everything in life has a purpose. And even in this pain, there is a purpose in this pain. And if we use the experience properly, that's beneath all the bloodshed, all the, economic poverty and all this and all that. What is going on is this, is that the clear message that Nigerians must understand is that we cannot continue to live in the prison of the past. And what this pain is doing to us is that it's helping us to produce a new national mindset, a mind shift. So what we're looking at is a maturation of the Nigerian spirit. Don't forget that the Nigerian spirit is a very, very forward-looking, resilient, innovative, creative, and a very excellent spirit. If you look at life, the history of Nigeria, and I'm talking from the perspective of the citizens right now.
Yeah, and that's the point that I wanted to interject respectfully, Reverend, that, we have not been able at the level of a collective, with the kind of resources that are also attendant, to that, personal character of the Nigerian, through our leadership and government, to make any, the kind of headway. There are those who argue, Reverend, that Nigeria ought to be operating at the levels of, if not at the level of the Americas of this world, at the levels of India and China. As you know very well, in 1960, Nigeria was even projected to go, faster and ahead of China. That was the prognosis in 1960. So I want to ask you, in your own view, what are the dominant obstacles that have come in the way of a people that are clearly, brilliant and talented, not to be able to form a government and a country that is that gives hope, not only to the black people, but a beacon of leadership in the world, as we ought to be?
Well, what I like to do is that I like to step back a bit and take an overview of the country. We need to realize that something is going on. There's a dynamic going on right now. There's a rubbing going on, and there's a change of mindset. You see, up until now, right from when we from independence until this present moment, Nigeria has been through a whole lot of challenges. And what we're doing now is that we need to realize that we are dealing with what we call a deterministic chaos construct, designed at inception not to function as a forward-looking country, as Awolowo mentioned. It was designed to keep failing without falling. Actually, Nigeria is a case study in chaotic complexity, not because of the size and diversity, but because we were impregnated, our foundation was tampered with. We had liberating fathers, but they were never allowed to become foundation fathers. We don't have any founding fathers till now. So what we have is a multi-layered ecosystem of patronage, ethnicity, religion, raw power, a mix of weaponized poverty, low value to human worth, and at least 5 existential threats. But the good news is this. If you look at the composition of Nigeria, 65, 66 and above, we form less than 3% of the country. 70% of the country, they are under 35 years of age. So what I'm saying now is that we may think this is difficult, but through all this pain, there's a mind shift going on that will soon congeal into definite actions. And you're going to find out that all we need to do is to shift away from analog thinking. If we move away from analog thinking to the tracks of digital thought, you will find out immediately that Nigeria, let me say this to you, I don't believe that we should be comparing Nigeria with the likes of India and some of those countries that you have mentioned. I think the people we should be comparing us with is that actually if Nigeria gets it right, we should be at the forefront of civilization. First of all, we need to be the foremost nation of Africa. Secondly, we need to be an improvement on the American 250-year democracy. We have everything it takes, especially if we can responsibly monitor, ideate, and assist the younger generations. What's that objective?
Okay, all right. I mean, excellent point. You know, and I like the the brilliance of your analysis very, very much. Now, I want us to talk a little bit about security. Now, we all know what the country has been going through, but lately there seems to be, in my view, or seems, I wanted to hear your view. Have we gotten a turning point in this fight against insecurity? Recently, we have, for the first time, a rescue, of people that were kidnapped by kidnappers and terrorists in this country. I don't remember the last time we had a rescue. I can't even recall. It's always been ransomed, paying bandits and terrorists and, all kinds of very shameful deals. But now we got, a rescue. How do you describe that? What happened in your state? Is it, does it give you hope? Certainly it gives relief, but what's your take, Reverend?
Well, like I said, from my own perspective, one of the first things I do when I'm looking at a situation is that I like us to remember that when we mathematize inquiry, the mathematization exercise helps us to reach accurate conclusions that we can go to sleep on. Not only that, there are things that may be missing to the naked eye, patterns that the eye may not see. But when you mathematize, you have the ability to concatenate, join the dots, and you are able to also draw conclusions from there. What is happening right now reminds me of, I haven't had much time to watch a football World Cup, but I tend to be cautious, and I'll tell you why. I can't remember which African team I was opportune to watch that match on TV. And I think there were 2 goals ahead until 20 minutes or something to the end of the match.
I think that was Egypt. You're talking about Egypt and Argentina.
Yes. All of a sudden, the script was flipped, and Argentina was able to put in 3 goals, win the match. Now, what I'm saying is that maturity doesn't allow us to rejoice when there is a one-off spike, as it were. What we want to do is let's look at the overview of security in the country. First of all, the primary responsibility of a government is the protection of lives and property. And what happens is that a government immediately forfeits the moral mandate to lead when they cannot guarantee internal safety and basic civic protections. Now, if we look at that responsibly, taking into stock the, American-style, quote, democracy that we are practicing, and we look at the entire country as a whole, not just the one-off spike in the Southwest, which we'll come to, we can granulate that later. The question you need to ask yourself is that, looking at the policies of governance, looking at the way the government has been handling the war against terrorism, can we really say that you and I can trust the future of our children concerning the whole war, that this nation will win the war? Nigeria is bleeding from every orifice. From when I started tracking the terror hydra in the early 2000s, 1999, 2000, I watched it expand from trickles of blood into this torrent of crimson. And my challenge is that I've always said something. There's nothing new about this war. It is globally documented as the global resurgence of extremist religious violence. There's nothing new about it. 20 years ago, I began to follow it. I was in the field, and I watched with horror because I kept saying that you cannot make a prescription for a sickness if you have not diagnosed it accurately. And my challenge is that till today, the architecture security of Nigeria as a whole is still not capable of handling the threat in a convincing manner. These are no longer the days of Clausewitz's Trinity of War. And let me say this quickly. The Nigerian architecture security has been violating a foundational principle in modern counter-insurgency doctrine. And what is that? It says that an imprecisely defined enemy produces diffuse efforts. It erodes morale. It compromises intelligence gathering. And there will be a lot of preventable casualties. In a nutshell, Nigeria cannot decisively defeat an enemy it has not decisively defined. So the truth is, if you look at, I wrote an article the other day at who killed Brigadier General, the Brigadier General that was killed. I mean, the top level officers.
General Uba.
Is this misdiagnosis and this refusal? When 7/7 happened in August 2005 in Britain, Tony Blair moved quickly to identify the enemy. If you look at the 9/11 report in the US, because you are dealing with the same hydra, it's a local problem, a global hydra with local phase. The US was quick to define it, but the truth is this: you are dealing with a sophisticated hydra that collapses nations from within. It is patient, it is disciplined, it is lethal, it is strategic, and it is opportunistic. So what am I trying to get to you now is that until the commander-in-chief of the Nigerian Armed Forces publicly and precisely names the enemy, describes its ideological foundations, its command structures, talks about its financing networks, reveals that openly, recruitment pipelines, geopolitical sponsors, not just the local, but the global, honestly, we are still headed in the same direction of defeat.
Interesting analysis, Reverend. So I want us to interrogate that a little bit more closely, because based on my own experience, also, you know, as a frontline spectator in the villa, I was a spectator, by the way, but frontline in the villa, I could see that clearly the expectations that we had. You know, as a matter of fact, the reason why many of us supported Buhari's presidency was that he was going to knock out the enemy. But to your point, I saw the struggle to call out that these are the forces. I remember that some of our principals actually told him, I said, look, if you can't stop these folks, you know, it's going to be difficult. Someone like you ought to be the one to solve this for. So I gave that background to support your perspective and to now ask you that why do you think is such a, in your own view, why is it such a big problem to understand who the enemy is? Well, I guess we do, but to call out the enemy, Reverend, you know, why is it difficult? I mean, this is an existential threat. Nigeria is the one that is bleeding from all sides, like you have said.
Well, I don't think it's a difficult question to ask. First of all, in those years, because of my work in the field, and I remember there was a meeting we had with Muhammad Buhari before he became president. That was a stakeholders meeting where we asked him a few questions, if I recall very well then. And when we asked the questions, I mean, the questions were simple that, look, there's been a lot of killings through the years. We've heard a lot of your comments. His comments definitely were not sympathetic to the terrorist activities going on within the country. If anything, his comments sort of gave room for misinterpretation that he was in fact himself a sympathist. Now, the truth being told is this. If you remember his comment about the baboon and the dogs, mixing the blood of the baboon and the dog, two times he made that comment.
Yeah.
It would seem that it may be coincidental that prior to the declaration of that electoral victory, presidential victory for him, of course, there have been people who have come out openly in northern Nigeria who were part of his party and all that then, who established that, look, they brought in troops, mercenaries, to effectively establish what he believed was a grievance. And if those reports are true, the upsurge we saw in the Fulani activities, not the Boko Haram. Okay? Remember that the Boko Haram is mainly Kanuri. But we saw an upsurge in the Fulani insurgency. We saw the fact that helicopters were delivering supplies to them. There was obviously complicity in high places in Nigerian governance. I remember that on this station, I had an interview and we called out the fact that an Al-Qaeda operative had just been appointed as a federal minister under the Buhari government. And despite the fact that this was known globally, the Al-Qaeda operative was able to serve, then let's again look at the policies that came each time. What we're just talking about here right now is that it seemed as if the compromise, the solidification of the compromise in high places actually multiplied under his tenure as the commander-in-chief. There was a brief spell when he first came in, when we seemed to regain territories, but immediately afterwards, it became clear that the impunity with which the Fulani militia was operating, the body language of governors like El-Rufai in those days was indicative of complicity. And like I keep saying, if you look at the policies that came out of it, when you capture Fulanis, go to the police station, their weapons are returned, they are released. And you look at the string of activities like that, you should know that a house that's divided against itself will ultimately even time will fall. So the Buhari years were not very. I took care of a lot of victims, and I can tell you that it was underreported. The number of victims that were being, people kidnapped, atrocities going on left, right, and center, territories that were being seized. Actually, Nigeria's geopolitical definitions were being redefined throughout tenure of his presidency.
Okay. Well, Reverend Larry Thompson, thank you so much for your views today. We will continue this conversation in my next edition on Friday, because I still have some more important questions. Thank you for coming to Inside Sources, Reverend Thompson.
Pleasure is mine.
Welcome back. In this segment, I want to have a very serious conversation on the rule of law and issues of state police. And joining me in that conversation, we have a US-based Nigerian law professor and former chairman of the Human Rights Commission, Professor Chidi Odinkalu. My brother, my friend. Good to see you again, Prof.
Same here, Reverend. It's great to see you.
Thank you. So let's start with what happened a few days ago. I saw the wives of Malam El-Nasir Rufai say to the government of the day that you are flouting, you are violating the rights, the fundamental human rights of our husband. Of course, the video went viral. I think the senior wife also went on TV to make the same point. But then you saw the responses of people such as Stephen Kefas, who said, hey, what happened to my own right when Rufai was governor of Kaduna State? Don't forget how he did not protect my own rights. And then, of course, we also have all kinds of other responses, people recording what happened to traditional rulers, including those who were found dead, and all of those other very worrying incidences. So I wanted to ask you that, Prof, do you think the Nigerian political elite, are they getting the message? Let's be like that. Do you think?
No, thank you. And thank you for taking that issue up on this program, because it's a very important issue, as you've rightly said. And you can't watch those clips of the wives, without being touched as a human being, particularly if you don't have any background on these issues. I also want to be careful in what I say, because Governor El-Rufai has sued me in defamation for saying that he did those things that people like Steve Kefas accuse him of doing. So I really want to be fairly careful in what I say, so that I do not interfere in ongoing court proceedings. Okay. I want to declare my interests there. Now, that said, the thing about power is that it is transient. You have it today, and tomorrow you don't. It's a revolving door. We're all coming to cycles of power, and then we revolve out.
Go out.
And as you revolve out, what keeps you going is how you treated the people who you met along the way. Now, as you rightly say, there are people like Stephen Kefas, who was my client, I've got to say. But I worked on Steve's case from beginning to the end, from his abduction in Port Harcourt to his freedom from the prison in Kaduna nearly 7 months after, on charges that were not sustainable, and charges actually of acts that did not exist. What was his crime? He was a critic of the governor. He was calling attention to the atrocities in southern Kaduna and the killings that were inexplicably rising with impunity. Yeah. Now, I was involved in Audu Mekori's case and in a few other cases that took place under the tenure of El-Rufai as governor. And I think anyone who says that he did not afford to those people the rights that are now being asserted on his behalf would not be wrong.
True.
And this is a point, though, about power and also about legality. We should not be situational about legality and justice. We only argue for justice for our friends and not for our enemies. or for people whom we disagree with. Because the injustice, the precedent of injustice that you set today when you're powerful may catch up with you when you are out of power. And that's the classic situation that Nasir El-Rufai finds himself in. I've gone on record to say that I find some of the rulings on his case, on his bail applications, to be nothing short of judicial malpractice. Right? You cannot be asking a civil servant to deposit a bank guarantee of 15 billion as a condition for bail in a bailable offense.
15 billion?
Yes. In a bailable offense, particularly one that does not involve culpable homicide punishable with death or murder. And the sums involved in this case, in the charges involving him, are, by Nigerian standards, modest sums, modest in quotes. And so, some of the conditions that they are being prescribed in his bail application absolutely do not make sense, are manifestly designed to frustrate access to bail in cases where bail should be routine.
Interesting.
So I've gone on record to say that, and I'm not quite sure that if roles were reversed, he would say that if I were the person in his situation. And so
I don't think so too.
But you see, I am not prepared to give up on justice just because there is somebody at the other end whom I do not agree with.
Which is the point we're trying to make.
Because the value of justice is too important to be abandoned to people whom we don't agree with. And my hope is that the people today who are treating him the way he's being treated, because they're in power, can also look at this situation and just think there, but for the grace of one election, go I. And just for the sake of that, step down from this. And the judges who are also being instrumentalized, or appear to be in a situation of being instrumentalized, can take a pause, because this is not a great advertisement for the justice system in the country. Now, by the way, I'm not suggesting at all that Nasir or any other person should not answer lawfully for the charges in court. I do think that it is important, irrespective of whom we are, that serious charges relating particularly to what happened, accounting for what happened to our patrimony as a people, should be taken seriously in court, but not in some of the ways that are being manifested.
Very interesting, and I'm glad that you put it very clearly that even though you are not sure that it will protect, it will say the same thing if you were in his shoes, but that we need to conduct ourselves in such a way that we are willing to yield justice even to our enemies.
Absolutely, that should not be negotiable.
Very, 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 very important. And let's hope that our political elites are getting the message very, very clearly, because that is where we need to be. But let's move on. I wanted you to talk about state police.
Those issues are very related. We're not moving on. We're actually just evolving the subject matter.
Exactly. Now, I have also advocated for state police, but I don't want a situation where it's all about the governors grabbing the powers.
Is this a state police you advocated that is being unfolded now?
I don't even know, and that's why I'm saying that. What's your own take? My view, just so you can then have a comprehensive response, is that whatever we do, this is my view, and I'm not a lawyer, but at least I'm a citizen.
Absolutely, yes.
My view is that we shouldn't have a state police where the governor has the kind of control, over state police. I think the governor's control over state police should be shared with some institutions. We must have a way in which the governor's control is effectively limited. And the state assemblies are not. So far since 1999, the state assembly, for the most part, they don't even stand up to the name of any kind of separation of powers at all. So anybody trying to say to us that, the state assembly can limit them, we haven't seen that happen in since 1999. So I am worried that how are we going to have a state police that the governors will just turn into another kind of political instrument? Prof.
Now, there's a lot to unpack in this conversation on state police. Obviously, we can't we can't scratch the surface on this program. But just yesterday, a friend from one of the states of South was telling me that her security guard, who, by the way, is a habitual wife batterer, they just rescued his wife once again from being killed by him.
Oh, wow.
Now, the security guard, and they were actually in the process of deciding whether or not to still keep him in this circumstance, and the wife was begging, please, that they should not sack the husband, that it will be worse for her. But the security guard came to her to help him, and she asked what was the issue. And he said that he needed her to assign for him as a guarantor. And she asked for what? And his response was that the state government was recruiting for state police, and he had been given the forms by somebody in the system to fill so that he will be recruited as state police.
Oh, wow.
I'm not joking.
Right.
I'm not making this up. Okay? Now, this is one of the states controlled by the ruling party. Now, and this is the point I'm making. This is the point I am on. We cannot be, and people are saying, oh, I'm shouting blue murder, right, for nothing. But there is a headlong rush to establish state police ahead of the January 2027 election. You cannot be establishing state police in election season. As a matter of the ordinary course of events, election season, politicians in election season have bandwidth for just one thing: campaigns and ballots. Full stop. Now, because we are in the middle of an election campaign season,
already.
You are now unfolding the most complicated conversation we could possibly have. There is no bandwidth for it. No politician has time to go into the details of what you're talking about, the design of what the constraints will be, what the safeguards will be, what the guardrails will be.
They're not interested in that.
No politician has that bandwidth at this time. It is just the nature of human capability and the nature of the political season. Okay? Now, in the middle of that, therefore, we are unfolding this. And where are we? There are two pieces of legislation. One passed by the House. The other is an executive measure passed by the Senate. They need reconciliation, and the House is being told you've got to accept the Senate version. No citizen has seen either version. All right? So here you are saying you're in support of state police, but with safeguards.
Yeah.
You have no way of verifying as we speak whether those safeguards have been accounted for. Do you?
No.
Precisely. Those who may have other ideas have no way of verifying either. Now, what we're told is don't worry, be happy, right? What's going to happen is this. We've got a two-stage process. There's a constitutional amendment process, which is going to give us the broad framework and parameters for the legislative process, which is going to be a reenactment of the Police Act, now providing for state police. But you cannot, nobody is producing this constitutional framework that sets the parameters. Because if the parameters are set without citizens seeing them, you may be locked into a logic that is too late. Okay? Now, and this is the point. So now you talk about the place of the governors. What is the issue? The president, as a matter of constitutional design at the moment, is commander-in-chief of the armed forces, controls the armed forces, right, under the Armed Forces Act. Second, the president, under the National Security Agencies Act, controls the infrastructure of national security. That is internal security with SSS, external intelligence with NIA, defense intelligence with DIA, and then joint intelligence with the Joint Intelligence Board and the National Security Advisor.
Right.
That is the architecture, broadly speaking.
Okay.
Correct?
Right.
Now, the police is also a federal institution currently, but it is overstretched, and we are looking for how to try and manage that overstretch. As currently established, there are other institutions in the infrastructure of managing the police, but they're all headed by the president. So all channels run up to the president. The governors are saying we also need a security institution. But the police is a law enforcement institution, not a security institution.
Yeah.
This is the first thing that we are not making clear in this conversation. Police does law enforcement. Okay? There is no civilized country in the world where you go to and politicians are telling you, give us control of the police. None. No. Not even in our neighboring countries. No. The gendarmes are not controlled by politicians. The gendarmes are quasi-independent state institutions for the management of law enforcement. Okay, I'm not even going to go to the UK or the United States or any of our
neighbors.
Just around our neighbors. Okay? Now, this is the point, that we are talking about this as if it is normal to hand the police to politicians and tell them, do with it what you want. Adams Oshiomhole said, the former governor of Edo State and now senator for Edo North, says, being the chief security officer of a state without having police under my command and control is like being a husband without a wife. I'm still trying to process that metaphor because it is totally nonsensical. With profound respect to Comrade Adams, it just does not make sense. It is entirely untheorized. But this is the way they are thinking about this. Give us this tool. And just that advocacy on its own should make everyone be very careful. And the history of political instrumentalization of policing in the country and of the police and law enforcement in the country goes back a long way. I don't like to go back to native authority policing because most people don't remember that. I have not read up on it. So I like to talk about two things, just to illustrate this point.
Okay.
Number one is what happened when the governors of Zamfara State, Anambra State, and Benue State in 1999 to 2001, established their respective vigilante services under law.
Okay.
Hisba in Zamfara State with Governor Sani Yerima. In Anambra State, it was AVS, Anambra State Vigilante Services, with Governor Chimoke Mbadinuju. In Benue State, it was the current SGF. He was governor who signed it into law. Right?
Okay.
What do you have in
those
Zamfara now? Banditry. It's a civil war, interethnic civil war.
Yeah.
Anambra State gave us what? IPOB. And starting with Bakassi.
Yes.
Anambra State Vigilante Services Law handed Bakassi to Governor Mbadinuju as his personal instrument of violence. That was why President Obasanjo was so horrified, he decided Governor Mbadinuju could not get a second term. And then Anambra went into disorder, generalized disorder, before it was recovered. Right?
Interesting.
Benue State was the state that BVS law, the Benue Vigilante Services Law, gave us the crisis of farmer header that we're seeing in Benue State.
So you've made those connections.
The connections make themselves.
Wow.
Okay?
I didn't think of it that way.
Now, around that same time that they were doing this, President Obasanjo was rolling out an expedited hire in the police because we had a huge deficit in police-citizen ratio, and he wanted to close that deficit. And so he rolled out an expedited hire to hire 10,000 police officers every year over a period of 5 years. That's 50,000.
Yeah.
When you go and read the report of the MD Yusuf Presidential Commission on Police Reform from 2008, MD Yusuf, that's Mohammed Diko Yusuf, who founded what is now the SSS,
yes,
and who was the senior most Inspector General of Police at the time, retired, said that in that expedited hire, politicians used that opportunity to collapse the training and doctrine institutions of the police and put into the police force their thugs. And that what resulted was that a very huge number of the people hired into the police force at that time were criminals.
Wow.
I say criminals because that is exactly the word you used.
In that report?
Criminals. In that report. It is in the cabinet office. I have a copy and I'm happy to share it with you.
Wow.
Criminals. Now, if the National Police Force, with its capability and over about 100 years at independence, could not preclude that, watch what is going to happen when we roll out this thing in the trajectory we're going. It is going to be phenomenally difficult for us.
What can we do in the circumstances? Because I think we have to be a little bit more. Now that these issues are coming up, otherwise we're just all going to be victims. We were trying to get out of frying pan. Hopefully we're not going to land in fire.
And we are going to jump into boiling oil. In a drum of boiling oil. Now, the thing is this. There are some basic things we can do. And, people say, when I say this kind of thing, they say, I'm opposed to state police. That's not the point.
That's not the issue.
That's not the issue. Now, it is because I am not opposed to it that I'm prepared to argue this.
Absolutely.
Case. Okay? So, what do we do? First of all, can we get a basic guarantee that there will be no rollout of anything like state police until after the next election? Number one.
Okay.
Number two, can we agree that there will be a sensible transition period into whatever is going to be? Number three, can we also agree that every legislative proposal along the way will be made public and there will be a public hearing in which citizens will have access?
Interesting.
Okay? Number four,
makes sense.
Can we also then agree to a reform and recalibration of all police training institutions? Number five.
I think they started that already.
No.
But okay.
Number five.
Not in the
can we agree that there will be a standard training and doctrine manual for everybody who will be taken into the staffing of state police? And number six, can we agree that there will be a standard due diligence manual implemented for everybody who will be hired?
Interesting.
I've outlined six basic measures.
Very important. And these are the things that we need to push out.
6 measures. And none of these is rocket science.
And, there are no indications that any of this is even...
Now, if you go to the police it used to be that just as you had a training mechanism for going into the armed forces. So if you are going into the armed forces, you talk about RC1, RC2, regular course. That is the course system for admitting people into the cadet mechanism for access to commissioning. So RC1 is Aliu Gusso, Mamman Kontagora, Dikpo Diya, Alison Madueke. We know who was there. RC2 is David Mark was RC3 with Ogbeha, right? We know them and we know where they went through. In the police force, you also had a similar cadet system for getting people into the police force. Everybody knows who their mates were. We no longer have a cadet system into the police force. You understand that?
Wow.
Because the training system is dead. Okay? Go to the police staff college and take a look at what it looks like today. It doesn't exist. If you're sent to a training command in the police staff, it is punishment posting because there's no money in it. Okay? So, you look at our current police force and the pipeline for access to officer training, not to talk about routine training for the non-commissioned officers, is dead. And you then want to engraft another layer of hires on top of that without attention to that infrastructure of training, no system of doctrine, and weapons handling. Weapons handling. Because the quality of weapons that currently, the vigilantes that the states have get waivers for small arms. But the small arms are not repeaters, okay? And they're not serious repeaters. Right now, these guys are going to have access to AK-47, SMGs. Basically, most of the vigilantes stop at pump action right now.
Okay,
that's what, 10 to 17 rounds, right? Now they are going to have AK-47s. They are going to have access to SMGs.
You don't want to put that in the hands of...
This is the point.
Very important point. Very important point. Okay, because I want you to take one more question because before our time runs out. And this that you said is very useful, and you already highlighted it, and these are the things that we need to push out. But I want you to comment on this recent rescue that we had in Oyo State. How do you... What's your comment on it? Is it a turning point, or was it a fluke?
I'm loath to comment on it, other than say I'm happy for the families that they've got their
freedom back.
That families at least can have the return of their loved ones, and then be able to address the health and medical needs and psychological traumas that the family members have endured over the past 56 days? Yeah, right? So that is where I'd pack that. I don't know whether it was a rescue. I don't know whether ransom was paid. I don't know what transpired. I don't want to speculate. And I will not take the word of a politician or the spokesperson of a politician on this. I would like to see a uniformed officer.
Yeah, no, there is already.
I'd like to see a uniformed officer say, or an intelligence briefing that says this
is what happened.
On my honor is what transpired. Without that, at that level, I am not willing to discuss what I do not know.
Yeah, well, okay. I mean, I have read a report by the deputy director of the division, the military division in Ibadan, who said, what happened, and clearly it's a rescue. But of course, it's important that you also see that, and and I'm excited that there's a rescue, and that's why I'm wondering, I hope that this is really a turning point, because we need that so badly. I hope it's not a fluke. But hey, Prof, always good to have you around, and thank you especially for clarifying those things that we need to do, because it will be a big disaster if we had let them use all of our groundswell of opinion on state police to hand us in some serious situation that we are not aware of. So those lines of action that you have articulated are going to be very helpful. And thank you for your views. Thank you for the forthrightness of your views. And thank you for coming again to Inside Sources.
Thank you for having me.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thanks a lot.
And then you have it, another edition of Inside Sources. Like we always say, Nigeria will prevail. It means Nigeria will win, partly because we will keep pushing at the major issues of the day by the grace of God. My name is Laura Kole. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you again at the next edition.